just heard from Gretchen around purpose. There are 3 moments in my life that changed fundamentally who I am. 9/11, 2001. 3/11, 2011. And 9/11, if you can believe it, 2012. The first, I was scheduled on flight 11. I was blessed to take an ATA flight 10 minutes earlier. My boss at the time, when I emergency landed in Denver, well, Kansas, drove to Denver, longer story. The following day, after my cell phone charged and I could breathe again, my leader called me and said, business doesn't stop. You need to be in LA. I think I was 24. And at first I went, how am I getting on a plane? Planes aren't taking off. And then it took me, I took a step back and said, what's my purpose? That's interesting. There was no acknowledgement. I was the only employee in the air at the time. Got on the plane. And at 24, I was brave enough to walk into that CMO's office, hand off my computer without having an appointment, by the way, and say no thank you. No job to go to. The second was March 11th of 2011, so fast forward 10 years. And I was on a flight to Narita, and the pilot came over and said, there's a tsunami, we have to emergency divert. We don't know if we've got enough gas. And I went, wait a minute, I've been here before. What's happening? And we emergency landed, thankfully. I turned my cell phone on. I had 20 phone calls missed from the security group at my company, and like 40 from my boss and my boss's boss. Are you okay? Where are you? What's happening? We've been in contact with your family. Wow, totally different experience. 9/11 of 2012. Crazy that it was 9/11, right? I did the math because I wanted to tell you my minutes. In my home office, getting ready to go be certified in community emergency response training, and I grabbed my water bottle and I got bit by a bee, or stung by a bee, a yellow jacket. Well, I thought nothing of it. I was homeopathic at the time. Called my neighbor and I said, hey, do you have Benadryl? I'll come on over. And she said, I'm not home. And I said, okay, I'll walk to the other neighbor. Walked up my driveway and I went into cardiac arrest. And the good news is, when I called that neighbor and I thought I was speaking clearly, I wasn't. It was like, whoa, and she called 911 on my behalf. 3 days later, I came to in the hospital, and my manager was there. Not my mom in Connecticut, she tried to get there, by the way. But my manager, a man, a white man, standing beside my bed, had been there for 24 hours to be my family when I came through and woke up. Every interaction we have means so much. There are 2 other points in my life that I want to talk a little bit about, and it's only to give you feelings about how I'm showing up every day, meaning you. How do you show up every day in the hotel, in the lobby, in the bathroom, in every experience we have? The next date is 10/30/2016. It's when I had my first and only child. I'm 50, she's 5. What a story I can tell you. That was never supposed to happen. And again, another story there. But backing up 6 months, I was at Microsoft. I'm very very much pregnant. And I used to frequent this Albertsons, a grocery store by my house. And the manager and I became friends. I was the one who used to buy copious amounts of wine at the time. And then she was like, you're not buying wine anymore, what's happening? And, so here she was, part of my shopping experience, but getting to know me as soon to be a mother. And she knew I didn't have family or friends in the Redmond, Seattle area. And she knew when I shopped, because I got off of work and I had this timing thing, right? So one Wednesday I got off of work and I went by the 202, the Albertsons, to grab my produce and the things I needed, and she had a pop-up baby shower. Right? What a leader. She's a manager of an Albertsons in Redmond, outside of like really city lines, quiet little place. But she took it upon herself to a woman she didn't really know at all. Right? It's not like I had her phone number. She didn't know where I lived. But she knew my schedule and she was like, I'm gonna make this happen. Those are the minutes and the moments that we create for one another. And it's not gender-based. It's just about living your life every single day. So when I think about my purpose, coming off the heels of Gretchen's wonderful topical speech, my purpose is to grow a 5-year-old to make sure she becomes a productive member of society with discipline, training, coaching, friendship, and love. To do the same thing, probably the first 3 with my husband. And to make sure that I start really leading with all of those moments that I had shared why I think I'm here, right? There's a reason, I think. And so my reason is to be doing this right now, to connect with each one of you on whatever level you choose to connect with me on. But I want to take you through a couple of the learnings and musings I have in my career and take away what you'd like from each one. Empowerment. Who here is a leader? Nice. Try to get everybody, raise your hand. Who here is a leader? Great. Now everybody keep your hands up. Close your eyes. Do you feel empowered? Don't put your hand down. But if you wanted to put your hand down, just take a minute. Okay, you can come back to me. Interesting. You probably don't know the real definition of empowerment because I didn't, but I Googled it and maybe it's not real. Who knows? I love Wikipedia. It's the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. Should I read that again? Just one more time. Because I was like, whoa, that's cool. It's deep. Empowerment, the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. So, when I was asked what I wanted to talk about, I was like, I can talk about anything. I can stand up here and tell you all day long the moments I fail as a mother and the moments I fail as a VP at Albertsons. I'm going to get to how I got there, huh? What a connection. But empowerment, it is intrinsically within us. You own it. I don't own it. It's all about you. You take a minute and think about if you don't feel empowered, that's on you. But how can you create the space and the time to understand where you're at this given moment and hold that with gentle grace to get to empowerment, to get to that confidence, to, what was the word? Start the process of becoming. Wow, we're all becoming. I think that's pretty cool. So let me tell you a little bit more about me. Put my glasses down, I'm not reading again. So I'm a mom of a 5-year-old. I live outside of Redmond, Washington. I go by she, her pronouns. I am a learner. I believe very strongly about making sure I try every interaction that I have, I'm giving something. I might not get anything, but I'm giving something of myself. When I think about my career, I graduated college in 2.5 years. So I ended up in New York City working at 19 years old with a fake ID, and I never used it because I worked way too much, and then realized New York City was not the place for a kid from Connecticut. So I went to work in New Hampshire, and I started in technology. I wasn't a tech person. I went to school for marketing and international advertising. But I ended up in a small little company in Nashville, New Hampshire, and I started in marketing. It's an easy entry point. To get to know myself, who I am. At that point, I was 22. And so I didn't even know who I was. But I was like, okay, I can do this marketing thing and I can learn. And from there, I grew myself and my career in so many different aspects and areas. I went from marketing to sales to partnerships to technology, and I learned how to code, but in an environment where I was welcome to do so. And I took every step as a mosaic. I was mostly dragged by the people who I met. I didn't have a path early on in my career. I just met people and I was like, hey, I can do pretty much anything. Do you need some help? And some people bet on me, some people didn't. A lot of times I failed, but the people who bet on me let me dust myself off and say, you know what, I'm gonna do better, I'm gonna learn, and I can bet on me. And so those were the things that my parents taught me that I continued to create in myself, that I can bet on me. I went to a startup, we failed. I went to another startup, we went IPO, I led that as a 26-year-old, that was pretty crazy and fun. I went to Microsoft, I worked for the big company. I left Microsoft while it was still that company that you didn't really want to work for. I went to work for Cisco Systems. I went to work for Pearson Education, then I went back to Microsoft, and then I got a phone call. Again, one of these sort of drag-alongs, and the phone call came in and said, hey, I want you to come to Albertsons. I was like, Albertsons? Yeah, I want you to come to Albertsons. I want you to lead Albertsons' portfolio from a technology and a digital commerce standpoint. Come on over. And I was like, me? I can't do that, that's too big. That's a VP job. I can't do that job. And then I realized, wow, I have so much doubt and fear that I need to lean in all the way to learn something, because my whole body was reacting. Like I had this like, oh, there's no way I can do that, that's huge. And so I did. And the person who asked me to come along also said, I can hear it in your voice. You are so scared, you're like never gonna call me back. And she's like, this is the time, this is the minute. And I did it, and it was easy. Okay, it was hard and I learned as I went, but it wasn't this thing that was like a monster and I could never succeed. I absolutely succeeded. And it took what I had behind me, a board of directors, to get me over my emotional hump, and then to get me productive very quickly. And when I talk about a board of directors, and we were kind of joking about this at lunch, well, I wish early on in my career someone had told me this, but I learned this about 10 years ago. To create a board of directors is a group of individuals from all walks of life that you have found, that you have embraced and pulled in, that can advocate for you, that can answer questions, that can be your test and experiment and bounce things off of. So my board of directors, I have 6 people active right now in role. And no, I'm not like, but I do sign them up. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna have you come into my board of directors, and here's what I need from you. What can I do for you? And we can get into details if you want after this conversation, but I have an individual who's a chief officer at a Fortune 500, soon to be a CEO, and I'm looking at that person saying, what are you reading? What are the podcasts? What are you concerned about? What worries you? What are your fears? How are you overcoming them? Because I can learn a lot from that, right? I have another middle manager, a woman my age in middle management that is super happy and does not want to grow, but she wants to be exactly where she is. And from there, I get to test and experiment. Am I pushing too hard? You know, like, here's what I'm trying to do over here. Would that resonate with you? I have an individual that is very new in career on my board, because that is also a wonderful opportunity for me to check myself and to learn. And each one of the board positions is a give-get. How am I doing on time? Okay, great. Because I know we're a little late. And everywhere in between. And so this board is the group that I go to say, hey, I have a challenge at work. I have a tough individual. I have a really tough problem. I just joined Albertsons as Vice President of Digital and Technology. What do I do first, right? Like all of these things. And also, you know, I reach out to my pastor. I'm having a problem over here. So also on my board. And this board, again, is something that can change and morph and should for you. I also have advisors, and those advisors are people I do log-in phone calls with initiatives or projects and just need to bounce off an idea, or again, having a struggle. I love to have people to call to say, how would you think about this? I'm way too close. There have been moments that I received an email from my CEO and I've read it and I've read something very different than what somebody else would say. And I need to ping that to somebody not inside my organization, by the way. So I go to my board and I'm like, boy, I'm really reacting to this. How would you work that? So the board of directors. The other thing about a board of directors is you've got to water them. Even the people who have gone back out into their lives, because you're not immediately interacting, you water them consistently. I like to think of it as that little hose that you put in the garden, right? And it's certainly, of course, it's the ticklers, that Shruti talked about, the one and done LinkedIns, for sure, anniversary promotion. But just keep a file, just put it in your calendar. You know that this person's daughter is X on X day. Just make the quick reach out, because watering these people will make your life in 10, 15, 20, 30 years so much more enriched. It's unbelievable. And like I said, if I had a minute back 30 years ago to start this, my board would be, I'd have a conference. But it is about creating that. So the next thing is the what and the how. Oh, good. I just want to know, give me the time, how much?
You have 14 minutes.
14 minutes. I can do that, 14 minutes. Okay, the what and the how. Gretchen talked about sharp elbows, or at least that's my saying, sharp elbows. Boy, a long time ago when I was early in my career as a manager, think about imposter syndrome. I wore khakis, argyles, loafers, buttoned down, striped shirt, and I tied my hair back. And there I wanted to be as minimal, quiet, but operate so that I could have a voice. I'm not sure, so not congruent, right? And when I think about my what and my how, as an early manager, boy, I was rough. I was hard, because that's what I learned how to be. And each step of the way, I picked my head up and said, well, that's not really working. No one around me is smiling. No one is having fun. How do I do this differently? And so as I grew in my career and as I grew in my functions, I learned more about what and how. The what is your job, right? We all, whatever job that might be, being a mother, being a vice president at Albertsons right now. But the how is, how do you actually affect change? How do you get things done? When you're a manager, M1 to M2, first line manager, second line manager, manager of multiple managers, those roles are about both delivering something yourself and empowering, or giving space for others to feel empowered to do their jobs. As you continue to grow in your career, the how will change. And I look at that change from, you go from a functional to a leadership. And there's a nuance there, but that is definitely being able to relinquish the, I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna do it really well because that's what got me here. I mean, I can do it really, really well, so much better than any single person here. It's not true, but that's what we tell ourselves. But as you can slowly loosen and put that down, and you pick up breathing air into others, making sure that others have this space, you're removing roadblocks, you're removing obstacles. That's where the leadership and moving from function to leader becomes much more enriched in your life and that of others, and motivating for others as well. Does that make sense? Because I can drill into that a little bit more. But that how and what, I'm sure your manager talks to you about that. I'm sure you speak to your people if you are a manager, because there is that self-acumen, self-awareness, all of the hows that we show up every day are really important, but with vulnerability, with authenticity, with respect and clarity. I was thinking about empowerment and how I take a step back and think about a framework. I frame everything in my mind, but I'm a COO, that's what I do. And so here are 5 things I think about within the framework, but take a minute and just look over here for just 1 second, because I think about the framework in an area of autonomy, so people can do their jobs. You're allowing people to do whatever it is that they're going to do. I think about it in setting aspiration, so a direction for individuals. I think about it in a way of direction, information, and clarity. So basically I've said you have a project, an initiative, a job, whatever to run, to do. You have your own space to do it. I'm going to give you some direction. I'm going to give you information. We're going to dialogue and have a Q&A around that. And you're going to seek clarity, and I'm going to provide clarity. With that, then empowerment can take root. Because hopefully then there's enough space and air for the person to say, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do. I've got clarity. I feel psychologically safe because now it's a little bit more open, right? There's no decoder ring needed. And so now I can fill in with empowerment. And when I think about the aspiration through clarity, those are the steps I use with our teams. At Microsoft, my most recent role before joining Albertsons, I was leading a 3,000 person engineering team, the majority of which, outside of 5 females, were male. And it was all about making sure I was just getting clarity all the time, just get clear, so that people understood that direction. So when I think about being vulnerable, Gretchen shared a little bit about that. I think, Shruti, thank you if you're here, from our morning talk before lunch. That was incredibly vulnerable. Sharing about switching careers, or at least promotability. That was fantastic. When I think about, looking at the curiosity and the fierceness, which I think is amazing because Gretchen's on the same wavelength that I am. All of this is around having a growth mindset, but being able to sit openly in the spot that you're in, hold loosely your feelings, hold tightly on your values. That makes sense. I'm sorry? That it's very important because without that, it's hard to be open. It's hard to have a growth mindset. And that will breathe room for curiosity. Okay. Being brave. So again, I've seen it this morning and early this afternoon about being brave. For me, courageous and brave are a little the same. So here I was this past weekend. I flew in late last night. I had my daughter and my husband, and we were in Colorado for my goddaughter's wedding. Different story, different time. Anyway, we had some time to kill. So we went to this huge ropes thing. It was 120 feet. Okay, think about that. I think that's the height of this building. I don't know.
They're high, but it's called the ropes course.
Yes. Define it.
Ropes course.
Yes. Do you want me to define it? Or it's called the ropes course. Yes. That's right. Thank you. That's where we were. And each level of the ropes course you were strapped in by like a carabiner. But it was very different. Like some you have to walk across these little pieces of wood. Others you have to get in this and like fly across. Some had the thing, some didn't. Here's the bottom line. I thought I had this. I looked up and I went, this is Kate. This is going to be so exciting. I got this. I'm the strong mom. I'm, the whole thing. We get all hooked up. We play around on the ground. I'm like, oh, this is so easy. We go up to the second floor, which is about 25 feet up. And I'm like, oh, this could be very problematic. But I'm going to pick those areas that I think I can do, By the time we got to the 4th floor, I was like, I just can't do this. I am like dread-filled and complete doubt. But yet I've got this whole thing. I could step off and I've got this whole thing connected to me, right? There is complete safety. There has to be. I did sign a waiver, but, and I am like frozen in fear. I want to go all the way back to the beginning about the stories that I shared. When you're in that minute, that's the minute of, oh wow, where can I take a step back and learn more about me? What is this? How am I feeling this? Where am I feeling this? Why am I feeling this? The why is usually one of the last questions, by the way. But I can't make a single move. And of course, my husband's like, sure you can, get out there. And I'm like, I can't. And my 5-year-old looks at me, grabs my pants, and she's like, Mama, just take one step, the rest will follow. And I was like, you're so right, everything, my old job and the work, you're right, 5-year-old. You know, but like, that's it, it's true. It's just one simple step. But going back to my beginning, if you have your board of directors, you have your safety net. You have built that around you, and those are the people that will be there to absolutely ensure that you won't fail. But when you do fail, because you totally will, they'll be there to be like, okay, so what'd you learn? Cool, how are you going to do it differently next time? What's that look like? Right? Because that's the people that you will bring around you to support you in all the aspects, marriage, family, work, all of the things. So finally, because I know it's time, I think it's so important to talk about no and. Who's good at saying no? Okay, great. We have to have a little conference after this. I need to learn all about that. This is an area I try to exercise consistently. And I think it's ingrained, at least in Nicole, that I need to say yes. I need to say yes because I've got to show up. Because if I don't say yes, I'm not good enough. If I don't say yes, I can't be loved. If I don't say yes, you just name it. Somebody else is going to take your job. All the things, all those wonderful things. Wow, I'm really active in my own brain. And so I have to make a conscious effort to build the muscle of no. And here's my escape plan. No. And if you wanted to take this time right now, we can brainstorm together on how you can approach that. No. And do you want to set up time next week? I can carve out even a couple hours. And we can get, like whiteboard and get to that game plan. My husband might want something. No. And it's so valuable for me to keep this time separate because with this separate time, this is what you get on the back end, right? But that and is sort of your break out of jail a little bit if you need it, but it helps you empower the no. And people may come further, right? Take a couple steps just to see if you're firm. But again, you go back to the and. Tell me how I can help you. I can't lean in that way. Whatever that might be, I can't take in another priority. And, if it's your leader, and here is what I'm working on. So what you're asking me to do is going to take 3 of these things off the list. You choose which 3. There was a gal in here earlier with Shruti's session that was like, she was talking about how do you know when enough is enough? And I was like, boy, you just go with your list. It's easy. It gets easy when you have a voice. Your voice is, here are all the things. As a vice president, I have a list. I have OKRs. I have things. Here they are. Knock them off. Tell me where you want me to focus. And the CEO will get that from the board and on down. So this no and is a fabulous opportunity for everybody to take a step, and that way you can carve time out for yourselves. So I wanted to maybe use the rest of our time for Q&A if you'd like, or you can go stretch your legs.